to an episode of CSTEd. Have you heard of the letter called Paccem and Terris, which means peace on earth? Today we're going to analyze it and explore how it relates to Catholic social teaching.
Paccem and Terris was a letter written by Pope John, now known as Saint John the 23rd, in 1963 during the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War.
For some context, the Cold War was a hostility that developed between the United States and the Soviet Union after World War II because the United States feared that the Soviet Union was going to continue dominating Eastern Europe.
Additionally, the United States and the Soviet Union were making missiles in different countries, and the Soviet Union planted a missile in Cuba with the intention of striking the United States. This increased tension between both countries and made them afraid to use the missiles because of mass destruction that could ensue.
On the bright side, the same year Paccem and Terris was published, both countries signed a treaty to ban above-ground nuclear weapon testing.
Now let's talk about Pope John's background.
Pope John's original name was Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli. He was an intelligent and humble child born into a peasant family in Sottomonte, Italy in 1881.
He was considered an anti-conformist, which is a person who rebels against a certain accepted behavior or ethical practice. He was someone who wanted change and progress, which angered Vatican cardinals.
He dedicated his life to prayer and studying to join a more peaceful life. Eventually, he received a PhD in canon law and served as a professor of theology and director of young men preparing to be ordained.
He was appointed Patriarch of Venice at 71 years old and was elected Pope in 1958. He had been the first Pope since the Protestant Reformation.
Even as the ruler of the Vatican, he focused more on his role as the servant of God's servants. He saw himself as a reconciler and emphasized the Church's significance as a uniting spiritual force in the world.
Later on, he died during the Second Vatican Council in 1962. His letter Paccem and Terris was published after he died.
Even after his death, he became recognized as one of the most loved men in the world because he shifted his focus towards the problems in the world rather than just the Church.
Continuing on, let's talk about the key teachings Pope John wrote about in his letter.
Pope John's main message was to bind people from all across the world, despite their different backgrounds. By doing this, he hoped to steer away from fear and call for openness to understanding.
He called for an end to the arms race between both countries. Through his letter, he advocated for a world based on justice, human dignity, and human rights.
Additionally, he made reference to the signs of the times.
Following with his message, Pope John stated,
"Finally, may Christ inflame the desires of all men to break through the barriers which divide them, to strengthen the bonds of mutual love, to learn to understand one another, and to pardon those who have done them wrong."
Another quote relating to his teaching was,
"It is clearly laid down that the paramount task assigned to government officials is that of recognizing, respecting, reconciling, protecting, and promoting the rights and duties of citizens."
What do you think about Pope John's letter? Here's what we think.
We believe this document emphasizes the importance of unity and love in the world. Like Pope John the 23rd, we strive to work towards peace and end hostilities seen in society today.
His message of peace can be used to remind people to help those who are struggling in any way they can. Making change is challenging, but it is not impossible. Improvements start locally, and later they can spread and have a positive impact on the world.
From this document, we can learn to become more aware of events in the world and find determination to work towards peace.
It inspires us to take on the perspective of people struggling to find God and show them mercy. With these simple acts of kindness, we can work to build a more peaceful world.
Thanks for listening to our CST Talk.